Hello my fearless friends, and welcome to my channel.
Okay, let me stop that. I can't keep that up. Hello my fearless friends, and welcome to my channel Gorehounds, where we as horror enthusiasts can delve into some of the best and the worst thrillers and horrors out there in the market. So don't forget to like this if you enjoy the review, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts below on the review, as well as the movie. Do you agree with what I've said? Did you get a different take on it? I'd love to hear it. So today we're just going to jump right into it with a 2019 horror movie flick, Polaroid. Polaroid is a 2019 supernatural horror directed by LARS KLEVBERG, who built on his 2015 short film of the same name. Now, if the director of this movie sounds familiar to you, that might be because of his recent recreation of the one thing that traumatized me as a child: Child's Play. Now, I'm not trying to throw shade, but sometimes you just need to leave these things alone. But that's in the past.
It wasn't that long ago.
Excuse me. Moving on. Now, the opening to this movie is pretty much a short film in itself. It starts out with Jessica Chastain here, rummaging through some of her mom's old belongings, submitting to peer pressure to display her goodies to her suitor, and then using the Polaroid camera to take a picture of herself in lingerie.
For real?
Girl, I said the same thing.
Did we learn nothing from Jennifer Lawrence? Well, I guess it's not on the cloud, so that's a step forward.
But I want it to be special. One of a kind, something only he'll have a copy of.
Now, if you haven't already gathered from the start of this movie, the mother is dead. Can you guess how? From the get-go, we can already see pieces of KLEVBERG's short film trickling into this movie. And to be honest, if it was just a short film, we could have just left it there and moved on with our lives, and that would have been fine. But we didn't. We continue. And I continue to see themes within this movie that makes me feel like he got inspiration from somewhere else. And I don't mean from his 2015 movie. But if you hold on to the end, I will explain exactly what I mean. So as this girl continues to enjoy sexually exploiting her friend, look at that face. That's a bad friend. Bad friend. The two friends wait for the picture to develop, and here we can see it's a normal picture. Nothing to worry about.
I mean, obviously, except the content.
But we noticed before, when the friend was taking the shot, there's a shadow behind her, even though there's clearly no one else in the frame. Now alone in the house, Sarah begins to sense that things aren't quite right, but somehow doesn't manage to pick up on the red flags that she's in danger. I mean, she's heard the camera activate without anyone else being around it. She finally sees the shadow in the photo. Lights start flickering and then we have a ping pong ball drop from the attic when her friend clearly threw it down the stairs. I mean, at one point, she even asks, "Who's there? What are you gonna do if somebody replies?" Am I the only one that thinks that in that scenario I already would have headed out the window regardless of whether I broke my legs or not? I don't know if maybe it's just me, but this chick clearly thinks she's Dora the Explorer because she decides to do the one thing you should never do in a horror movie.
Don't go in the attic.
Now, I don't know about you, but it's not very often that we come across a ghost with medical health issues. And this ghost is asthmatic. I'm kind of guessing the whole point of the noise was to try and mimic the sound a Polaroid camera makes, but it's still a bit weird. That's pretty much what I sound like when I face my number one enemy.
Stairs.
So rather than trying to survive, she decides to go and investigate and oh no, a scaly hand, I guess he's got eczema too. Or maybe he's just a little lonely.
I just wanna feel real love.
Rejected.
She screams, she trips, she falls, she's caught, and she's dead and snipped quicker than a vasectomy. Moving on. So getting into the meat of the movie starts with your typical high school yearbook photo shoot. Now, this is one of those moments that made me think inspiration came from somewhere else, and again, I will go through why I say that at the end of the video. So here we see a really lame attempt to bully someone.
It's Scarf Girl.
And I'm not saying that bullying's okay, but really? It's a mustard scarf, and I'm a mustard girl. I think you're just jelly. Now I know I keep bringing up the 90s, but this moment just so reminded me of Clarissa Explains It All.
Decisions. There's so much music to choose from when you're trying to please 3 generations.
Okay, bye.
So as you may have guessed, this is our protagonist and the bullied quirky girl with an interesting hobby in photography, Bird.
Stalker, but okay.
Her hot guy friend with a crush gifts her a vintage Polaroid camera with no expectations of anything in return.
Whoa.
Oh.
My bad.
So after some good old-fashioned photography and sexual harassment, Birdie says bye-bye and leaves the much important plot device, oh, sorry, I meant the camera case behind, which will obviously prove important in the future. Now within the safety of her own home, Bird begins to play with her new camera and for some reason doesn't seem to pick up on the really awkward cues her dog is giving. I mean, this dog is clearly uncomfortable, clearly very worried, but thankfully this is one of those movies that doesn't sacrifice the furry best friend just to build up a body count. And she's interrupted by her friend that just invites herself in her house because apparently nobody locks their doors in this neighborhood. So there's a lot of discussion here about the future, and I kind of assume that's because they want you to build a relationship with the characters, so if that one of them dies you kind of feel some way, but I was just kind of meh. But Casey here tries to bring a bit of spice to Bird's life by convincing her to go to a party. But for the sake of the movie, it's a great way to drag people into your nightmare that's about to become your reality. Now, as Bird leaves for the party, she takes a final look at her friend's picture, noticing something in the background. Now, I think at first she thinks that this is a smudge, but it is very clearly a silhouette and doesn't seem too surprised by it.
Well, she better take a good long look now because that's the last time she's gonna see him like that.
Why you gotta be so extra though? Why do I say this, you ask? Well, unfortunately for Tyler, the only other minority in this movie is going to the party and hasn't yet had her photo taken, so he's the next best thing. Unfortunately for Tyler, he gets caught out by the ghost, and I guess you could argue this point for most horror movies, but it seems like in this particular case, the ghost gets a kick out of tormenting the people he's supposed to be killing. Now, if this was a regular intruder, then your boy Tyler would have been all up in there with that hammer, but unfortunately it's not. It's a ghost, and they're very good at disappearing, and they're quite hard to hit unless you're going to hit them with... But I digress. The ghost decides to play a little game of peekaboo with Tyler, and unfortunately, he wasn't quite ready. It is a bit funny how this ghost kind of looks like a costume you might do if you were dressing up as a ghost. The ghost is probably all under there like,
Give me some of that sugar.
Oh my god.
So it's bye-bye Tyler, and the audience are left seeing red. So while Tyler is getting spread like jelly, the A-team arrive at the costume party held by the self-proclaimed slutty gypsy Avery. And it feels right that before they get plastered that they should partake in some quick tarot card reading. Now it seems like Avery had already predetermined the cards for the people that she knew was coming. However, it seems like Bird was unanticipated, so she is forced to pick. So Mina and Devon here get the Lovers, Cassie gets the Fool, and of course Bird managed to pick, well, see for yourself.
Pick one. Yeah, that's not good. Can I try again? Not really how it works.
Now, in an attempt to portray irony, Bird's crush, Connor, is also dressed up as Death. So now that we have all the potential bodies together, We can now lock all our potential targets into their impending doom.
Wait, guys. I can take it. This. Oh, someone shops at Urban Outfitters.
There you go.
Okay.
Wait, don't you want to get in it with us?
Oh, no. I'm much better behind the camera.
I don't know what it is about this guy, but either he's unfortunate enough to be doing weird things with his face when the camera is on him, but there's just something really off about this guy, and I don't think it's a movie plot. There's just something in my head going.
Alright, howl on 5, ready?
Okay.
5.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Now as Bird starts to suss out that something's not quite right, Avery snags the camera and decides to try and go selfie mode with a Polaroid, and to be fair does quite a good job actually. Then shortly after this that Bird finds out the tragic news about Tyler. After hearing the tragic news about her friend, Bird goes home and starts looking through the pictures again, noticing the smudge has now left Tyler's picture and somehow moved to Avery's. But rather than listening to her intuition and giving an Avery a call, she's like, nah, she'd be alright, and goes back to bed. But of course Avery's not, and unfortunately she dies when the ghost tries to play chiropractor and goes a little too far.
Hey, let me get that for you, baby.
The next morning, Bird finds out about Avery and now knows that this simply can't be coincidence. It must be the camera. She runs back to the pictures and now realizes that the shadow has now moved from Avery's picture to the group picture that she took the previous night. She attempts to destroy it, but then she gets hit with the
Panic, boom!
I mean, did you really think her little noodle arms were gonna break something that has the ability to kill people with a flash and a paranormal entity attached to it? Okay. So as everyone arrives at school, there is a memorial to Avery and Taylor. Now I'm assuming that Sarah's death must have been some time ago, because if not, then this is a massive middle finger to her. So Bird's in a bit of a hurry to share her theory with everyone else because they're beginning to assume these things are accidents, and understandably it's a bit hard to believe, but I appreciate that this is 2020 and they were open-minded enough to let her explain.
This shadow? I saw the exact one last night before the party in Tyler's photo. What are you talking about? I took a photo of him. With this.
And that shadow was in the picture?
Wait, what?
I don't see a shadow.
No, that's exactly my point. After Tyler died, the shadow moved to Avery's photo. And then when Avery died, it moved again. I think you're all in danger. I think if it takes your photo, you die.
Okay, maybe open-minded was the wrong phrase. But sometimes, you know what, there is truth in madness, and sometimes when you want proof it'll hit you hard, because this Polaroid camera came with a multitude of safeguards, and they're about to learn whatever happens to the photo happens to whoever's in the photo. When they tried to destroy that photo, they got exactly what they were looking for, and my girl Mina went up like a tiki torch. Luckily for Mina, Bird is the only one with common sense to realise that you have to put out the fire on the photo before it will go out on her arm, even though they've all seen what just happened to her with their own eyes. So the gang decide that they need to investigate why the camera does what it does, which leads Birdie to go back to the antique store where she left the case. Now the thing I find most odd about this movie is it leads you to believe that every time the ghost is about to attack, the camera activates itself, almost like a signal. But it doesn't seem to do this all the time. As you see, we didn't hear it happen with Avery despite Bird always having the camera, and you'll see later on it doesn't do it when somebody else dies. Now it was assumed that Birdie had some form of immunity because no one had actually taken a picture of her with the camera, However, Connor notices that her reflection is in the picture, so it turns out that even if it's just your reflection, you are fair game to miss a flash here. Something Bird's about to find out real soon. Unfortunately, while this is all going on, Birdie and Connor don't get to the others in time to warn them that the ghost is on its way, and Mina is our next casualty. Now, I have cropped this one out just because it's one of the few deaths that they actually do show, and I do think it might be a bit much for some people, so I've just cropped that one out. So Birdie and Connor arrive to find out the news about Mina, and Devon is understandably upset, but I think he goes a bit far when he starts blaming Bird for this. I mean, she didn't exactly anticipate having a killer camera, so they use this opportunity to start digging and go into investigation mode. Well, would you look at that?
Convenient, dare I say?
Using the evidence tag they found in the case and the local archives, which I assume is in the nearby library, they discover that the camera was involved in the death of 3 teens and a photography teacher by the name of Roland Joseph Sable, or RJS, matching the initials on the case at the beginning of the movie. Bird and Connor share what they've learnt with the rest of the gang, as well as recording Bird's last encounter with the entity.
And I want to know how you got away from it and Mina didn't.
I don't know, Devin. When it was coming after me, it got near something hot and it did this like weird blurry thing.
Blurry thing? What do you mean?
When you develop photos, you have to be careful because heat and light can mess up the images. This thing behaves just like a photograph does. Maybe it only develops in the dark, that's why it's not here now.
So with that bit of insight, they finally realise that the entity behaves just like a photo, which comes in handy if you know what to do with that information. Now with Mina's death, Devon begins to behave more and more irrationally. His behaviour ultimately results in them fighting for the camera, him taking a photo of himself, and we just get to see just how efficient this entity behaves. Not only do we get to see the shadow actually physically move between photos, we also get to see that he works on a philo type system, you know, like first in last out, which is a pretty good system to be honest. Good way of keeping track. Devon, now afraid to die, tries to turn the camera on Bird, resulting in Cassie going all ninja and using some photo to IRL tactics just to get Devon to stop. Devon, now even more irate than before, oh shit, tries to go for Cassie, and ultimately ends up bitch slapping a cop.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
I'm sorry, but you can low-key see her trying not to laugh.
Jail time.
Bird and Connor try to explain the situation to Sheriff Pembroke, who does a really bad job of trying to convince the audience that he's completely ignorant to the situation, basically telling them not to involve themselves in issues they know nothing about.
Well done, mate. You did a good job of convincing them not to dig around. Absolutely brilliant. Bravo.
So while Bird and Connor are having a nice tongue wag with the sheriff, Casey manages to track down Sable's wife, who has changed her identity to avoid situations like this where nosy buggers come knocking on her door. When Bird and Connor finally confront the wife, she explains that the camera did not belong to her now deceased husband, but instead her now deceased daughter. And while this is going on, Devon is getting penetrated in jail without any mention of soap.
You like popsicles?
Going back to Bird and Connor, Mrs. Sable explains that her daughter was bullied because she had learning difficulties, and these other kids who were murdered had violated her by taking explicit photos and sharing them around the school. Unable to cope with the trauma, their daughter sought a very final solution, resulting in the father trying to exact his revenge.
His anger turned him into a killer. Then they caught up with him down at the dark room of the school. He died holding that camera. He never got to finish what he started.
Now at the moment the lights stop flickering, this is presumably the same time that Devon dies, and we know this as when Connor's looking at his pictures, we see the shadow has now moved from his picture to the group picture. However, notice the camera didn't activate or make any noise at that moment.
Plot holes!
I guess Devon and Mina can die in silence together then. Because Mrs. Sable is a wise and kind woman and she doesn't look menacing at all, she instructs the teens that in order to stop the killing, they need to finish what her husband started. Find the fourth teen, kill him, and only then will her husband find peace. Now knowing that Devon is dead, they now know that they are on borrowed time and need to find the identity of the fourth teen. They soon discover that the fourth teen is in fact the sheriff. It is just amazing how they were able to find him so quickly just by using a side profile of a Polaroid. But alas, they have been discovered by the guilty party himself. Aided by the fact that Cassie's a terrible lookout, it turns out the sheriff has been following them all night, and they now think that the sheriff is here to cover his tracks. Thinking they know everything, Bird thinks she's a bad man and whips out her camera to serve some Sheriff Pembroke to the ghost. But turns out she doesn't have the balls for it and cops out. No pun intended. Connor, trying to be the hero, tries to intervene, and the tussle between him and Sheriff Pembroke results in Pembroke's photo being taken anyway. But they quickly learn that everything they've been told is a lie and they're about to learn the truth. A little too late.
Jesus, you got it all wrong. We didn't take those photos of Rebecca. Her father did. See, we tried to get the pictures so we could take them to the police. But he found out. Just snapped. Went crazy, came after us, killed us one by one to make sure his secret never came out. He took pleasure in our suffering. Thank God the police got there before he could kill me. But Rebecca couldn't live with the guilt. Rebecca was my friend. We were all her friends.
Lena Sable told
Lena Sable stood by while all this happened. Of course she's gonna concoct some bad shit story. She's been blaming me and my friends ever since.
Behind you. Shoot him! Shoot him!
Connor, you seem to be struggling a little bit. Cat got your tongue? Or are you gagging on the gastric juices of guilt because you've just killed an innocent man? Hoping for a clean sweep, the ghost now turns to his last few victims. Connor acts as a distraction in hope that everyone can run away and hide, and Bird takes refuge in the shower by creating a steam barrier protecting them from the ghost. Now realizing that Connor may be in danger, she ventures out to find him.
We can't stop it. Look, he's still there. Once it takes your picture, it just uses it against you.
Remember this because we will come back to it. Now Connor says this and Bird has an moment. Now as she's devised a plan, it is dependent on them getting the camera, which the ghost is very accommodating in allowing them to get. The ghost uses it as an opportunity to snag him a snack, and to save Connor, Birdie demonstrates the one and only time that a selfie will ever come in useful in your life. Having secured her place at the top of the ghost kill list, Bird makes a dash for the dark room, where of course she falls and loses the camera. Now that she has the ghost exactly where she wants him and has located the camera, Bird now goes sees an area and puts her plan into action. And gets a few snaps for the Inquirer while she's at it. Stunned by the flash, it takes the ghost a moment to realise exactly what it is that Bird is doing. But this is now one of those once you know, it's too late sort of situation. Bird scrunches the photo and we see the ghost fold like a paper bag and her fingers bend back like Miley Cyrus at the 2013 VMAs. Now for some reason Bird seems to think that this has finished off the ghost, but clearly that's not the case. Do you want to try again, Bird? Final round? Alright, let's go.
Fatality.
With the ghost now defeated, Bird is reunited with her friends, and the demise of the ghost is confirmed as they look at their group photo and confirm the shadow is gone. And just before we see the ending credits roll, we see Bird dispose of the item which symbolises all of her trauma. Now there's a lot of red throughout this movie, and I assume that's supposed to be symbolic, from Bird being Red Riding Hood to the red skeleton on her tarot card, the room turning red as Tyler's killed and his blood covers the projector light, even down to the Sabler's daughter's shoes during their flashback. And I've assumed that they've done all of this to tie it back to the original event that led to this, as well as the camera, but it'd be great to hear your thoughts as well as to why you think they incorporated so much red in this movie. Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Now you might still be wondering, well, I don't understand why you said that this reminded you of something else. You still haven't mentioned that. Well, does anyone here remember R.L. Stine? You might know him more for his popular book series Goosebumps. Well, R.L. Stine wrote a book called Say Cheese and Die in 1993. The book was about a boy called Greg who found an old camera in a derelict house, and it pretty much destroyed anything it took a picture of. Sound familiar?
But wait! There's more!
Now, does anyone remember the old Nickelodeon series, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Now, Are You Afraid of the Dark was a horror anthology TV series started by Nickelodeon in 1990, and it's had a second run since then, and I do believe they're doing a remake, but this was a childhood favourite of mine, and it's actually featured a lot of pre-famous faces like Ryan Gosling and Neve Campbell. And to date, it is still something that I watch quite regularly on repeat, which is why I recall so vividly that they had an episode called The Tale of the Curious Camera. Let me know if this sounds familiar. Meek school mascot Matt is being picked on by the school bully as they prepare to take their yearbook photo. No one is visible in the photo, and the photographer replies that that's because he probably feels invisible and the camera just shows the truth. The photographer refuses to take another picture, however, as a trade-off, gives him an old Polaroid camera. Matt soon finds out that the camera takes images of events that have not yet happened, and anything that is photographed by this camera will soon be destroyed.
Hey, take my picture.
Forget it. Might crack the lens.
Uh-huh.
What is this?
Huh. I didn't do it. The wind just blew it over. Mom's not gonna like this.
Soon the camera starts taking pictures on its own and destroying everything that it shoots. Matt and his sister Amy eventually discover within the pictures there is a goblin, and it is this goblin that is attached to the camera and causing the destruction. Upon this discovery, the goblin turns on Matt and Amy and tries to destroy them before they destroy it. Matt tries to destroy the camera by making it take a photo of itself using a mirror, and while this initially works, it turns out the goblin has now jumped from the camera to the camcorder. As the camera is hooked up to the TV, Matt manages to overcome the goblin by overloading it. And while it seems that all is good, the end of the episode seems to indicate that the goblin has now jumped ship into the computer. Now there's a line in Polaroid that actually triggered this memory of this particular episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? And although they're not the same word for word, there was a familiarity about them. I'll play you the clip and you let me know what you think.
Once it takes your picture, it just uses it against you. Calhoun was right about the camera. Destroys everything it shoots.
Now I know I might be being picky, but there are a lot of similarities and overlappings between the two, and even down to details like the shadow and the goblin in the photos. Maybe I'm just being picky, but unfortunately for me there are just too many similarities and overlappings between this, the episode from Are You Afraid of the Dark, and Say Cheese and Die. And I'm not saying that Are You Afraid of the Dark and R.L. Stine came up with something original, but I think we've now reached a point where that particular concept has been overused, and I think I would have just liked something a bit fresher and more original. But overall, I wouldn't say Polaroid is a bad movie. I typically don't like movies that rely on jump scares, and I feel like that's kind of what carries this through. But it was entertaining. I would give it a solid 5.5 out of 10. But that's it from me. Thank you for sitting through and watching my first ever review. What did you think of the movie? Have you seen it yet? Are you gonna go watch it now? Let me know down below. Leave a comment. Make sure to like and share this video with your friends, and please subscribe, because I'd really love to know whether you guys actually enjoy what I'm putting out there. But to my fellow gorehounds and children of the night, thanks for watching, guys. Bye. Boo.